Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the public meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals for the City of Albany. Tonight is Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. It's about 6 p.m. We have a couple of different matters in front of the board tonight. The first matter is a returning matter. It's project number 00602 for area variance 0190, 0190, 0191, 0192, 93, 427 Tasher Street. The applicant is Bishop Lifting. It's a mixed-use form-based warehouse district regarding wall signs.
Hello.
How are you doing? You doing? Good. Had a good holiday?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Hopefully this is short and sweet. So for everything that was suggested and recommended from the board last, went back to the client. They agreed to get rid of the one, they had to get rid of the sign anyway. They are removing the one from the whole project, the awning sign. And they are proposing to reduce the one that you guys were okay with, but we had questions of the size, the 220 square foot. They agreed to reduce that a little less than half to 149.85 square foot.
thank you. Are there questions coming from the board on this? Okay. So I actually have a procedural question right now that I just was thinking. So if the applicant is agreeing that they don't need area variance, I believe 0190, then was the application modified to remove it and we don't have to take action on it, or do we still have to deny it? Like,
are you suggesting you'd like to withdraw number 0190?
that's what I understood, right?
I'm not sure the specific way that it's easiest for you guys to handle it, but yeah, they're going to remove. We had to remove that.
You're not seeking area variance 0190 anymore.
Were we not denied that to begin with, Anna? Didn't we have to remove one sign? Weren't we denied the variance for the additional wall
One
sign?
sign, but we didn't pick which sign.
Right, only now
Right.
pick one sign.
Okay, and so now you're withdrawing one, and the one you've picked is 0190.
Okay. I don't have any numbers. Those numbers don't coordinate with anything I have. So
But the 42 square
apologize.
foot sign.
Right, so they're permitted a total of 4 wall signs. It's either up for discussion with the board or going off of the applicant's preference or recommendation to deny area variance 0190, which is the smallest 42 square foot sign.
But I don't think we have to
They
deny
haven't
it.
officially withdrawn it.
Okay. It was not officially withdrawn.
Correct, it was
But
just,
it could be done right now.
Yeah, I don't see an issue with that if that is what you'd like to do.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, so the applicant has now withdrawn area variance 0190. Okay. With that said, I know there's a lot of people in the public that are here, I believe, for the next project. Is there any?
there's still additional action.
Okay.
On the remaining area variances.
Yes, but I'm checking if there's public comment on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we had no written submittal.
Okay. No one else here to speak on this matter? Right? Okay. Just making sure, thank you. Any motions from the board?
I'll move that we approve area variance 191 to allow for a 44 square foot sign.
Any seconds? Jaleesa, how'd you vote?
No.
Paige?
We're on 191, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Serena?
Yes.
Adriana, yes. So that's 3 in favor, 1 against. It carries, so the area variance is granted. Any motion on 192?
I'll move that we approve area variance 192 to allow for a 44 square foot sign.
Second.
Serena, how do you vote?
Yes.
Paige?
Yes.
Jaleesa?
Yeah.
Adriana, yes. That's again 3 for, 1 against. The motion carries. So area variance 0192 is granted. Any motions for 193?
Okay, and I'll move that we approve area variance 193 to allow for a 149.85 square foot sign.
Second.
Okay. Jaleesa, how do you vote?
No.
Paige?
Yes.
Serena?
Yes.
Adriana, yes. So again, 3 for, 1 against. The motion carries, and the area variance 0193 is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a
See you
good one.
soon. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, so next is project number 00575. It's a cabaret license appeal for 199 Lark Street, the Larkin Hi-Fi. It's in the zoning district MUNC. The request is that the applicant is appealing the city clerk's denial of the requested cabaret license.
Do I come up alone or?
Whatever you want.
Sure.
And I'd like to note, as relates to project 575, Larkin Hi-Fi Cabaret License Appeal, I'm requesting to remove myself from the discussion, deliberation, and voting on the matter due to my position as Vice President of the Center Square Neighborhood Association. I don't feel it'd be appropriate for me to make a decision on the matter with the potential for a perception of conflict due to my position within the neighborhood association.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paige. Okay.
Should I start or I didn't, I handed in a,
I have
Kind of
that, I'm
memo
not
briefing.
able to make copies. I do
Okay.
have-
the previous one, I didn't know if you gave them the.
Yeah, that's all in the project files on
Okay,
the drive. And I think-
it's similar. This is similar, it's just a shortened version,
Okay.
summary, so I don't have to keep these here all night.
Okay.
And I can pull that up on the screen if
Oh.
you need it anytime. I don't think.
I have it. I have another copy. Yeah, I have it. I'm fine. I just wanted to, I don't know if you wanted to do a questions, because it's appeal, you have all the documents, I can read my statement, or it's pretty much, it's up to you.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things from my understanding. I think the first thing that maybe could be addressed is the question about the noticing of the meeting tonight. And then let's start there, kind of hear what your thoughts are on that, and then we can kind of go from
Sure.
there.
Sure, I found it to be very difficult to find some, the law and on the code for that. So I have a lot of stuff with that. Again, I have, we posted the, on the building, on the business, the 199 Lark was attached on the 28th of December. I took a picture of it, I also handed that in. And then we published it with the Times Union, which I didn't get a copy of. I didn't get a copy of it until today, but I sent in the receipt. But I do have the affidavit with me, and I can give it to council right after. As far as the emailing, I emailed Bill Pettit in place of as like a substitute service that he could tell. I'm sure he has, if not all, the contacts in the neighborhood association with the buildings. I do have a good relationship with Bill Pettit. We had spoken. I did send him. I told him I was going to send him an email. Again, we believe that we gave sufficient notice by substituting the email. We didn't have really enough time. I know planning is very busy, and they tried to give me notice as soon as possible. But I got notice on the 19th of December that I had that they changed it. And plus I looked for it and I didn't see it. It says the city shall. So I didn't find it. And then I went to the 375.2 chart and I didn't see it on there either because it says it references to me to go look to that chart, which I have here tonight. I'm sure you already know it. Again, I didn't see it where it was written. So it's a little vague, a little difficult. Plus, there are constraints of financial constraints for a small business. Like I couldn't even find somebody we had to do like 100 notices, and they wanted like $400 or $500 was the cheapest I could find, and it was Hirschberg and Hirschberg, which was a great help by Brad. But that again, it was $500. It's a small business. We're trying to every dollar counts. Especially when it comes to, and I thought maybe the email would be substantive enough.
If I may just provide a brief explanation on what the requirements are for this sort of appeal. In table 375.502.1 in the USDO, it lays out all of the different types of applications that may be brought before the land use boards, including the BZA. If you go to line item number 19, under policy decisions, it's towards the bottom there. Just scroll up a little. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, the scrolling is, okay, yeah, it was like on a little sliver. Scroll down a little further. Right, no, sorry.
It's a little bit more, they're 19, it's number 19.
Yeah.
Go down.
You look at the 375.505 column.
You're at 10.
Okay, so interpretation. Interpretation of policy decisions requires mailed notice, and the reference to that is found in the USDO section 375-504, subsection 6C2.
Yeah.
Mailed notices shall be required for those types of applications listed in table 375.502.1. BZA, Board of Zoning Appeals, City of Albany, is tasked with interpretation and upholding the zoning law, not necessarily dispensing with other laws. I did notice, in both of the appeals written, there are issues with the noise ordinance. The purview of this appeal, though, is purely the cabaret license denial. And per that, it would be an interpretation of the clerk's decision, policy decision, on the cabaret law. As a result, it does require mailed notice per the city ordinances. Well, is there. That's the position of the city. While I do understand and absolutely sympathize with the explanation, the time constraints, and the financial constraints, we apply these rules to every applicant that comes before this board for anything that is on that table, at least, of course, which this is. So in that case, we can't really make that exception just because we would be violating our own rules, and we would also be detrimenting other interested parties in their right to speak on this due to the fact that they are actually entitled to that notice by the law. That's, I guess, all I have to say on that. I think we maintain certainly that we would very much prefer mailed notice for the USDO and cabaret law as well. Just additionally, the cabaret law for initial hearings also does require mailed notice. In that case, it would be the clerk that mails that notice. However, because this is a de novo review upon appeal, it would also be appropriate, given that fact, for people to be re-noticed again. De novo appeal, Latin for anew or start again, for the non-attorneys in the room. And so that would imply that this board is going to look at the record that the clerk had to make the initial decision and make their decision as if the clerk's decision never happened. In order to do that, I think the notice is also appropriate there to make sure that it can do so. But those are just, I suppose, two arguments as to why the mailed notice should apply here. But certainly on the grounds that this is an interpretation of policy decision made by a city official, that is still a legal requirement, which I would just also clarify that none of this is to your detriment, certainly. It's not like this is being thrown out today or anything like that. It's entirely up to the board how they proceed. I just wanted to lay that basis for everyone, which you can discuss. That's about
Thanks, Jason. I just ask that, that the board understand that, even myself as an attorney and a businessman, that I've been in the city a while, that, this was very difficult in just this part. And if you read the simple part of it, of just chapter 111 amusements, part 3 cabarets, it's very hard for a lay person to just, they would have to hire an attorney. And even myself I found it very difficult because it was different. One said 100 feet. I got a letter that said 250 feet. I just asked that the city, and this is not on my client's time, but that the city look at this at a future date and try to assist our businesses, because that might be a problem. Why, it's so hard to do business in Albany sometimes, and not understanding, they're running a business. They don't know the city inside and out codes, and they do their best. But again, I appreciate you for listening to me. I still wish that you'd consider that was substantial service and substituted service by emailing the president, and that he would have access. He's here tonight. I don't think anyone else, except for the people that are here tonight, have had an issue from the previous meeting. And I did also reach out to Bill and did ask Bill, and I think he misunderstood me, and I apologize for that, is I wanted to meet with those people so we can negotiate. My client wants to help as much as he can and offer and be a good neighbor in this whole, incident matter. So thank you. I appreciate you to still consider my request.
Can we backtrack a little bit, and can you try and pull up as we go through? So what was the section for the mail notice?
So that would be
375, 505. and then-
275-504, it's titled General Procedures. And then within that section, we go to subsection 6, which is scheduling and notice public hearing. I can also pause, I realize you're all so but let me know when you get to the page and then I can continue.
Are you with it?
Yeah, right, perfect.
And I think from the applicant, I'm still a little bit unclear. So are you agreeing that the section that the city is pointing to, 375, 504, what?
6C2. Yeah,
6C2?
6C2. Yeah, so.
62C?
Yeah.
Are you agreeing that this applies to the project and to tonight's meeting, or are you disputing that?
I would like, if it's going to affect my client's going to do what he has to do to get the, if we have to do the mail, we have to do it. I'm asking for it to be considered that the substitute service of the email and posting and the publishing should be substantial enough that also the fact that the same people here are here from the last meeting that are opposing it.
So you're arguing substantial compliance.
Yes, thank you.
So effectively that a notice requirement does exist, but that the actions you've already taken should be considered sufficient to meet this standard.
Based on the fact, yes, but it's also the fact that it says interpretation. You know what I mean? Again, it makes it very.
Understood.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Okay. So on that point, is there any questions, comments on the board?
No questions. I think just as a comment, I understand what you're saying as an attorney myself. However, I am loath to move away from giving less notice than it appears that is required. And I think substantial, if there was language in the USDO that suggested substantial compliance could meet that standard, right? Similar to the CPLR, I'd probably agree with you. Without that language, I do agree with the city attorney's interpretation, and I think at the very least, in order to not burden either people who want to be heard, but also the applicant who's here, that we consider maybe hearing the application and reserving decision, and giving the applicant an opportunity to comply with the notice requirements ahead of the next meeting, so that any additional parties can have an opportunity to be heard. But my position is that the notice requirement needs to be met with, strict compliance.
Okay. Any thoughts or any comments?
I agree. Does your client have the capability of mailing out notices as required?
He does. I've located somebody, thanks to Brad, who will do it for a price. And I'll have that discussion with my client. I mean, of course, we'd like to move forward, and then if my client decides, we'll know by next, I guess if we could schedule for the next hearing, we'll come back, or I'll come back, because my client is probably working and needs to be at the establishment. So, thank you.
Any concerns on the city part?
No, I think that's completely fair. There's also public commenters here, I know as well. So yeah, if you want to proceed and just say your piece, and then you can have public commenters up, the board can make their decision as to whether they want to table or do whatever.
Okay.
So I think this was a more administrative procedural point on the whole matter, but I think it was important to have it up front. Since it sounds like we're saying, my understanding is, it sounds like we're saying we should go ahead, hear the case, take the public comment, but we will require, before the board take any action, that the full mailing notice requirement be complied with, to ensure that everyone who has a right under the code to be, noticed of this matter has an opportunity to be heard. I don't think it's something we have to take an action on per se.
Yeah, no, I think we can reserve action until after everything's said.
It's more a procedural part of this matter. Okay, with that said, I guess if you want to kind of get into the substance of the matter, then go ahead.
I do have a quick question. So if there's a public hearing in February, right, presumably, then those who attend that meeting might want to hear the presentation, correct?
I thought about that too, but tonight is recorded.
Correct. Yeah.
So maybe the notice should mention and maybe provide a link to tonight's recorded meeting, which I'm sure Anna can provide to you.
Oh, okay.
Just so that they can have the full presentation and the full information.
Right. I mean, that's still, okay, I mean, obviously it's your choice. You're here, you're prepared, you're ready to go to give the presentation.
Oh, I see what you're saying. If they wanted to wait to do the whole thing.
That if they have the choice to present today and now, ready to go, or to do it in front of the public hearing when everybody else is here to hear the presentation. And
I can do it twice too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's up to you guys.
I want to do it. Listen, we want to be as transparent as we can. We're not here to, we want to make sure that we work with, the board, the community, the neighbors. That's what we're here for.
Okay, and everybody's here.
Yeah. So like I said, I can do it twice. You don't have to pay me twice. So the appeal is based on the following issues that were brought to my client's attention. The denial of the cabaret license was sent in by mail on October 11th, 2024, which I think that was the wrong date. That it's either, because then it said on the letter that there was an incident involving the codes officer that occurred on October 20th. So that would be impossible, because October 11th is before. So, however, there was an incident in October and involving the city codes personnel. There was a matter that occurred on that night. I just want to read a little response to that. My clients understand the concerns of these allegations. I believe without any admission to any wrongdoing that there is more to the story, and in the response to the concerns of these allegations, my client has asked me to handle this matter. I reached out and I've spoken to the director of buildings and regulatory compliance, Richard LaJoy, about the situation and his relationship with my client. We both came to a resolution of putting this matter behind us. Of course, with the understanding that nothing close to a story like this is acceptable and should never be tolerated in the city. My client has a long history with the Building and Codes, Building and Regulatory Compliance Department. It's a very good history working with them. My client owns many businesses in the city, works with them quite often. The working relationship has been good for my client and the city of Albany. My client has invested millions of dollars in the city and would like to continue to do so. My client acknowledges the hard work the employees of the city perform every day for the businesses to succeed and grow in the city of Albany. My client would like to thank all those employees for the services they provide to all the communities in the city. Since that evening, there's been no issues. My client is always willing and open to working with the city of Albany and all the departments of the city. He knows how important it is that we all work together to make the Albany and the community better. So that was issue 1. I didn't know if you had any questions about that for myself.
Do you have more to present?
I have another issue.
Yeah, why don't you go through
Just
all
go
the
through.
issues and then we'll go through questions.
Yes, ma'am. The second is the premise history and concerns of the noise and noise complaints. In response, the existence of these complaints does not mean they're valid or substantiated. It is my understanding that every time the police have come to the establishment, there have been no findings that rose to the level of a nuisance violation. I did subpoena the beat cop, Officer Fabrizio, if you would like to talk to him. And I wanted to make sure, again, no, we want to be transparent. My client wants to work with all aspects of the community, not just ones that are favor of him. In our opinion, the noise complaints are personal opinions by a very small sample of neighbors that have not made an argument that is meritorious based on the factual circumstances. However, their voices count, but is not considered any greater than the other neighbors in the community that have no issue and enjoy my client's establishment. The area in question is zoned a mixed-use district. A mixed-use property in the district is developed real estate that combines multiple uses, such as residential, commercial, retail, entertainment within a single building or a complex. The mixed-use district has positive attributes. It generates economic activity for the city, creates jobs, goods and services for the community. My client provides all these positive characteristics to the neighborhood and the community. I would like to address the following. The City of Albany noise ordinance, stated as this, the Albany's noise ordinance prohibits unreasonable, unnecessary, or unusual noise that can disturb or endanger the safety of a reasonable person. The standard is ambiguous and unclear. It's arbitrary and capricious. It's based on a decision by a city official who could be arbitrary in judgment, which comes about seemingly at random or by chance or capricious in an unreasonable act of will. If the official is capricious, if they produce a sudden, impulsive, and seemingly unmotivated notion or action, there is no consistency in this law. It's at the official's whim and without a strong, consistent standard to guide the city official. It is very difficult or even impossible to make a correct assessment based on this law, in which the decision is made without a rational basis, ignoring the relevant factors, specific property location, making it inconsistent and an objective standard to decide a rational basis for the matter. The standard of the noise ordinance to be met in the mixed-use area is the responsibility of all the persons that live in the area. It is not only met by one side, which is my client today, but the person or persons who are complaining must take a role to prevent the noise from penetrating their space. However, my client has made many accommodations to his property and to suppress the noise from leaving the venue. He has soundproofed the spots that could have been an issue in the venue. He's made great efforts to be a good neighbor, add the quality of life to the community. Now here's a question. Has the individuals who are complaining taken any steps to soundproof their areas of concern? Have they taken any efforts to make this easier on my client so that they can live together in harmony. We are responsible to work together to make this community that all can live peacefully. Those who are complaining must take an action to prevent or alleviate the level of noise they feel is comfortable in their space. They live close or around in a mixed-use district with businesses that are providing desired goods and services. These goods and services are wanted by other neighbors from the community, not just that individual. It is proven because the local neighborhood residents are customers and come to the establishments to enjoy the services the businesses provide. Here's another question. Do those voices not count? I think they do count as much as the individuals that are complaining. There are many establishments around the area where my client is located that are similar to their business. They're allowed to function with a cabaret license and were not denied. This makes the standard, again, inconsistent, ambiguous, and unclear. The use of the law is arbitrary and capricious because there is no consistent set of facts that are used to decide who is worthy of this license and who is not. My client asks again to be treated equally to those businesses around them. In conclusion, we are looking for the zoning board to approve this appeal, overturn the denial of the City of Albany City Clerk for the following reasons. In addressing the incident involving the city employee, there were no findings of wrongdoing in the matter of the incident involving my client and the city employee. The parties have spoken, they resolved the issues that surrounded that night and put it behind us. Prior noise complaints, number 2. There has only been allegations about noise levels and violations of city noise ordinance that came from my client's establishment. We should not be using the poorly written city ordinance that could and should never be used to establish a noise violation. And also, there has never been any formal violation substantiated that my client was in violation of these current noise ordinances. My client asks to be granted the rights and privileges that are given to all the other similar establishments in and around their location. My client looks to be a good neighbor, community leader who respects the needs of his neighbors. Thank you.
I just want to make one quick note as well, with regard specifically to the mentions of the city's noise ordinance. That's not the subject of the appeal before us today. The subject of the appeal is the cabaret licensure issue. The board there is no violation of the noise ordinance before the board to adjudicate on all. There's no decisions related to the noise ordinance the board can make at this time. And I would also add, just with regards to whether or not formal violations were substantiated or followed through with, ticketed, served, whatever you want to say. In the cabaret law itself, which members should have in front of them, section 111-69, subsection C, 2H, which is going to be a little bit of that was 111-69C2H. So for new license applications, it says, in determining whether to issue a cabaret license, the city clerk shall consider the following information in addition to any information or comments submitted. Line item H is the history of the establishment regarding police calls and noise complaints. The basis for the police recommendation for denial of this application was the premises history, which encapsulates all calls for service to that location within a given time frame, as well as the aforementioned incident involving city codes personnel. Now, I only say that just to clarify, not giving an opinion on certainly any of that, but that is what is within the cabaret law, and I think just to provide a little more of a focused scope of this appeal, that's probably more, and correct me if I'm wrong, probably more what you want the board looking at, is whether or not that was interpreted appropriately, the denial based on that.
Right, the response of, again, if you know Lark Street, you know Albany, there's landmarks, okay? People make phone calls all the time about properties. If something happens, again, there's a lot of issues that happen on the street, and I don't want to get into the crime or the homelessness, which is probably a greater issue than playing music. However, I just don't think that should be held against my client, that people are making phone calls, because there are people out there that are are making these phone calls not for the purpose of what we're here tonight. And not that they're not valid or not valid, but we have police and they, again, you could be arrested many times and never be convicted and you don't have a record. So I would just appreciate if the board would consider that in that there were no findings on those phone calls. But that's all. Thank you.
And Jason, if you have, do you have any further guidance regarding how to analyze premises history if we can't take into consideration the noise ordinance? Because it looks like the premises history is almost completely built upon, the whole argument is based on noise complaints.
Yeah, I have no additional guidance related to that. I don't have the underlying files the police based any of their assessments on. What I would say though is that the board could certainly determine, if police calls and noise complaints should impliedly mean they're substantiated in some way, shape, or form, just in the interest of not holding.
I mean, he's right here. He's right there. If you want to call him.
Yeah, so you can ask Fabrizio to speak on the matter, and he's been, he was the one who came each time.
I will, if he has signed up for public comment, the board will absolutely hear from him, so that is definitely covered. But just wanted to share that bit of information. Unfortunately, I don't think I have further guidance, just because I have similar amounts of information as you all with regards to specifics, but I'm sure a public commenter may be able to provide some.
Okay.
So to be clear on that, Jason, you don't have any either incident reports or 911 calls?
Correct. They were not provided with the record that the clerk sent to the board. Do we have the?
We have the redacted.
Okay, correct. That is correct. That is not bad.
Do we have the existence of the 911 calls?
Yes. Do you
They're
wanna,
in the project file, correct?
The call history, but there's
Call
no
history.
real detail as to the outcome.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. I wasn't sure if there was like.
Yeah.
That is
That's
my
the
bad. I
extent of it.
completely forgot that was in there. I redacted it myself.
Yeah, you missed that word,
Can I
so.
ask what's the weight of that based on that? What would the weight of that be if, if anybody could make a phone call? And,
I thought we were asking the question.
I know, I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm
I
actually,
think that would be what the board is ultimately trying to determine here, though, is what weight, if any, that should carry as to the licensure.
no more questions.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
From notwithstanding the discussion about call history or police complaints or police reports, do you have an estimation of how many times the police have responded to the location and spoken either with your client or other staff at the location?
I cannot answer that. I would like my client to answer that if he can, or if Officer Fabrizio can answer that question. Myself, I can't.
We'll get to him. Did you say 4?
Maybe 4, yeah, is what I would assume.
What time period?
From June to now, yeah.
Is that June to date or June to October 24?
June to date.
And can you tell us a little bit about the substance of those calls and the conversations without necessarily sharing anything, the conversations that you or staff had with police?
Sure. Typically when the police show up, they'll come in, they'll ask to speak to a manager or an owner. It's either myself or Aaron present, and basically the conversation usually goes something like, we're here because we received a phone call about noise, and I'll say, okay, you're here, like, what do you think is going on? And generally, not generally, every time the response has been, seems fine to me. And it's been very common that they've said that they didn't even hear a single thing approaching the door to the business. So on the street, it was inaudible. And then inside the space, they considered a reasonable volume, even to the point where the last time they showed up, I asked them, I offered to turn it down, and they said, no. I said, we can even turn it down. I mean, it's not a big deal to us, and he was like, I don't know, I wouldn't, it seems fine. And then they left. So it's usually something like that. It's just immediately dismissed, and then they leave after a quick conversation, basically stating that it's their job, they have to show up, right? So if somebody calls, they have to come and respond to the complaint, and then they come and then they don't substantiate it, then they leave.
I also, if I could add, the noise inside coming out, and this is part of the, it's probably louder with the buses that go by. You know what I mean? I'm saying, maybe it's not constant, but it's Lark Street. And it's a very, very busy street. It's a high volume street. It's even saying like, what are we gonna stop? We're gonna stop traffic from coming onto the street because there's cars backed up. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you limit that kind of area for noise? For noise issues and I believe there should be a strong law based on noise. Like Saratoga has a very good. You guys should look at that. I gave it to a couple of the people in the city. But again, it's not even about that. My client would love to, if there are people that are having issues, he would love to speak with them, or I would love to speak with them and we could work this out. This is not personal. This is his business. This is his life. This is how he makes his money. This is how he feeds his family. I'm sure that everybody who has complaints understands a paycheck. That's his paycheck. And he doesn't want to disrespect them, but he's trying to fight for his paycheck.
Did you say
Be
that?
clear about the names really quickly, because you said Aaron, so what's your full name and title?
Nicholas Warkle, and I'm a co-owner.
Oh, you're not Aaron.
I'm not Aaron, no, I'm the other one, yes.
Sorry. No,
Yeah.
How do you spell your last name?
Warchol.
And you're Aaron Wilson. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
That's right. I think Mr. DeJohn, you mentioned soundproofing. Has
Yes.
soundproofing been done?
Yes, as far as my discussions with my client, he has soundproofed the areas that were issues.
Okay, and has it been tested for sort of the capacity of how much sound it maintains or keeps or traps or
There hasn't been any
et cetera?
calls.
I know, but that's not what I'm
If
asking.
we're gonna base calls.
So I'm at right there, my understanding with soundproofing is there is an ability to test sort of how far out the sound is reaching. Has that sort of testing been done?
What is the city?
Right, what is the standard is the question, because the thing is that like, yes, like there is soundproofing, it diminishes a certain amount of decibels, right?
Mhm.
So it prohibits a certain amount of decibels from passing through. However, there's very few places, like I can't turn it into a completely silent
So it's a
box, right?
it's a great question. Actually, what's he gonna, to test it in the sense of like how loud it is? Are we testing it to the neighbor's level that it's acceptable to them, or is it to the left of the neighbor,
Because it's
or to the
completely,
right,
yeah,
or to
it's
the person in front?
subjective,
Well,
right?
I direct you to 1169C to C, which seems to speak to at least a question of whether any soundproofing exists
Oh,
or would be capable of minimizing sound bleed over into adjoining buildings or past distances greater than 10 feet for freestanding structures. So to the extent that there is a standard, I guess that would be my question. Has the soundproofing that has been implemented been tested to see whether or not it would meet that standard of minimizing
Yes.
in whatever fashion that is?
And it has, yes.
Do you know to what percentage?
I did not test it with the decibel reader, no.
Okay, so that was, I guess that was my
Okay.
question. I didn't know what the reader was called, decibel reader. Yes, thank you. And when was the soundproofing done?
Over the course of construction, I came here twice to present about soundproofing, which is why I'm not sitting up this time. I thought I'd give you a chance to speak. But I
You can pull
work
up a
with,
chair. And actually it might be better because it's recorded, and so for,
The final piece of soundproofing was put over the, there's a rear exit door into an alley. And the final piece of soundproofing that we added recently, I paid a good amount of money for it too, was a really high grade, like rubber, it's like a sound deadening thing that they use for recording studios. We screwed that to the entire door, and that diminished the sound pretty significantly. That was coming through a metal door. But the rest of the entire wall is double thick. It's a, what is it?
it's a 2-foot thick wall with a 6-inch air gap in between both feet. And I worked with an architecture firm on this. So we've done as much as we can. We've hung ceiling clouds. We did the back wall. David Lucier from the coast department came, took a look at it, gave us a thumbs up. Yes, we've done,
Until when?
when was the back door done?
The back door was done probably,
September?
I would say, yeah, September. The back door was done in September.
But everything else was done during construction,
Mhm.
which
So
was
before April.
Yes, before we opened.
Before
Yeah.
June, before June.
Before June.
Just for context, when applicants here went before the planning board for the conditional use permit for the tavern use, one of the conditions was to implement the soundproofing plan that they had proposed. And I did confirm with the codes department that that was implemented. It wasn't tested to the standard that was cited from the cabaret law, but it was implemented pursuant to what was required by the planning board.
Thanks, Brad.
So wait, most of it was done before June, and the back door, you said September or December? I can't-
September.
September.
Sorry, thank you. And so then the 4 complaints that led to APD comments between June and to date, have some been since September?
One has been.
Thank you.
One has been since we put up
The door.
the door. Yes.
Has anything changed in the operation of the business since the denial in October?
Yeah.
Pause for a minute
Pause.
Yeah.
I thank you for catching that.
until Louisa comes back.
Okay, yeah, because we don't have quorum anymore. Thank you.
That was silent. I didn't mean that.
No, I can't remember the question.
You're joking, right?
No. I'll find it. I'll find it. We paused because we don't have quorum.
Oh,
Wasn't sure.
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just need a drink of water. I'm so sorry.
You just walked away.
I am so sorry. I was
Anyway.
like, wow, they're awfully quiet. I'm
Okay.
sorry. My apologies.
That's fine. So I was just asking, since the denial in October by the city clerks of the cabaret license, what has changed, if anything, in the running of the business and like the impact? Because I'll actually pause.
Okay, so yes, we actually did change. So out of consideration for the neighbors, we actually minimized the amount of like dance events that we would have. So when we're hosting an event where the purpose is to motivate a human being to feel something and dance, that the music tends to be a little bit louder. But what we've done, we've actually scaled it back to where we used to do those types of events up to 4 times a week. Now we do it only 1 time per week. So we've actually scaled it back 75% to try to meet to try to appease the neighbors and try to work with their requests. And that's been happening for the last maybe like month or so, where we decided to scale back, and now we only do 1 event, and it's always on a weekend night. So we don't do any loud music during the week, it's usually 1 weekend night per week.
And were those required actions or
No,
voluntary?
It was voluntary.
Actions. So during the pendency of the appeal, did you have like latitude to continue operating, or was there something that any actions you had to take while the appeal is pending? I don't know if council knows.
I do not.
I mean, I wasn't told to do anything differently, so we just did that on our own accord.
Will that change depending on the decision of the appeal?
No.
Can I ask a follow-up question? What would you do with the license that you aren't doing now? I guess.
Not feel like we're committing a crime every time people are having fun in our bar.
Let me rephrase. what kind of additional actions, events, are there any changes to your business that the issuance of a license would either affect? Is there anything you want to be doing that you have not been doing?
No, I just don't want to get in trouble for doing the thing that I'm doing.
In line with that kind of thinking, one of the things I've been wondering is this is an appeal of a 2024 license, which from the code, my understanding when you look at the fee section, licenses are only valid till December 31st of each calendar year. So really, we're in 2025. Even if we reverse, I mean, it's kind of, a part of me is wondering if this appeal is a bit moot. The only thing I see as potentially not making it moot is that a renewal of the license is slightly different from what I understand than first, in the process. So for 2025, if you determine you still need a cabaret license, I guess it sounds like.
So what happens is the city clerk will send out a renewal sheet, and it's a one sheet basically saying, what you did last year, you're going to do this year, and then you sign it, and it's pretty much a renewal of what you had. So it's just a renewal. It's not anything.
Whereas if we decided to deny the appeal, then the 2025 would be a new application.
Correct.
Which means what?
Which would mean that he has to go through the whole process again.
Which was?
Go
May
to the
also
clerk.
add, sorry to interrupt, I believe also it would prejudice their 2025 application if they had a denial on their record from 2024. So it would limit or it would give the clerk's office a little more leeway to
Deny 2025 again.
believe that can be found
Yeah,
in
the renewal section.
E something, E4. What is the full? Sorry, I had to scroll all the way through. 111-69 E4. The clerk may refuse to issue a renewal license to an applicant in a situation where the applicant, licensee, officers, principal, etc., have not complied with the regulations of the city clerk applicable thereto, which would imply that they've been rejected in the past. That's because they were not complying with the clerk's regulations already. You could use that as a basis.
Another thing is, the reason having the officer here, I think the only department that said no was the police department. So, and I think that was, and having the officer here was something I thought would be helpful, because you can hear he was firsthand. And I don't know why the police department actually denied it. I don't know why they felt.
That was a question.
911.
It was the incident with the law enforcement officer, and it was the premises history, which was their basis, like in the letter.
Oh, okay.
First page on the memo.
So just to be clear, when you're saying only the police denied the permit, are you saying all the other entities?
As far as I know, all the other departments were.
That is correct. All other departments that were asked for comment gave approval with conditions, the conditions being pretty general.
Actually, their police department was a denial referencing noise complaints and incident with city codes personnel. Separately provided a redacted 911 call log. The law department issued with conditions. Planning department issued with conditions referencing the original conditional use permit for the use and the conditions associated with that, including the soundproofing. The Department of Buildings and Regulatory Compliance recommended issuance. The Fire Department recommended issuance with conditions, including the installation of smoke detectors, and the common council member who is, yes, asked to weigh in, but I don't know has the same stature with respect to the code as the other reviewing departments. Suggested issuance with conditions that reference soundproofing, meeting with the neighborhood association leadership, and turning the sound down if asked. Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, I think those are recommendations to the clerk. The clerk makes the final determination.
Correct.
Not de facto outright denials, but everyone that I have seen where a department recommends denial, the clerk tends to.
Yeah, there's a section of the cabaret law that states the clerk may not grant if any of the departments don't recommend issuance.
Mhm.
So the clerk was, regardless of what any personal thoughts were, the clerk was tied to denying as a result of the police comments provided.
We were required to deny.
Yes.
I was looking for that. Earlier, I couldn't find it, that's why I asked you. So thank you.
It
It's
is absolutely.
1169C3. Have there been any conversations with the now current common council member who's ascended to that seat? Or were the last conversations with council member Romero?
I don't know who that is, so no.
Rich guy.
Oh, no, I don't. I have not spoken to Rich.
Okay.
Regarding the incident with the codes person, so as a reason for denial, it's saying that that person was ultimately unable to conduct their inspection. Have they conducted that inspection since then? And
Yes, they've been in several times.
and did they give you a report or something indicating that they completed the
I don't,
inspection?
they
or
weren't attempting to
record?
do a real inspection. They were called there as a result of a complaint, and somebody had said that we didn't have a cabaret license, but we were playing live music. During that altercation, we had a conversation about the language in the cabaret license, which I had actually, prior to the incident happening, had printed out and had ready to attempt to show to the person. So I just, I wanted him to read the language that I was confused about, because it does state that certain things are not covered by the cabaret law. And one of those things was incidental music performed by less than 3 people. So it's a very vague language. So that was my interpretation of the law at the time. So that's what they were coming to investigate, just whether or not we were in compliance with the cabaret law, and whether or not we needed a cabaret license to operate as we had been operating.
And do you recall around what date the inspector returned to complete that inspection?
Next week, right? They came back, yeah. Mhm.
And that was the conversation I had with Rick LaJoy, the director.
For board members, the section referenced the cabaret law was the very beginning, 11165, definition for cabaret. I believe we were with Nick, right?
Yes.
What Nick was referring to with regards to the 3 or more people in the invitation.
So what we were doing was less than 3 people through a central audio system, and it was incidental, meaning that no one was paying, there was no cover charge, no one was paying to see the entertainment. It was just the person selecting records and putting them on a turntable, choosing them and playing it through, not a directional sound system that's only located in one area, but with speakers that exist throughout the space. So by definition, a central audio system, which in this part of the law states that I actually don't require a cabaret license to have that kind of music. So there was some confusion about what it was. And that was that's why we were operating in that way, because we believed that we were in compliance with the regulation. And that was why someone showed up to try to make a determination as to whether or not that was true.
And do you know why that person showed up? Was that a result of a phone call?
The first person, I think, was as a result of a noise complaint, yes. And then the next one was a result of the first one happening and then having to come back.
And do you know if, and you may or may not know the answer to this, if the noise complaint was made to the police department versus the buildings department? You said Richard LaJoy is the person who you spoke to, so I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
We only have the calls for service from APD.
Okay.
They kind of just show up. You just answer to who shows up.
I'm
And,
confused by the timeline, sorry. So this situation with the building code enforcement officer, this is before you applied for Cabarrus license?
Correct, yes, because we did not believe that we needed to apply for one for the way that our business was operating.
Right, so that's like sometime before July. Basically,
Um,
I think.
I'm pretty sure it was in October.
Okay.
The incident with the codes official was in October.
Okay, but wait, you applied for Cabarrus license like in July, right? Yes.
They told us that we weren't allowed to apply because of something where they had stated that we couldn't apply while we had a temporary liquor license, which I later tried to look into that and found it to be untrue. But someone had told us that. So we had put it in, but didn't really follow up with much of it because we thought that we had to wait to try to get it until we had been approved for a full liquor license, which we have.
And when did that happen?
The full liquor license?
Recently.
Pretty recently.
A month ago.
And given the good conversation that you're saying you had with Mr. LaJoy, do you think it would be possible for him to submit something in writing if needed, if it were needed, just in terms of thinking out loud, like something that states that, you know, that the
There's no
inspection was
issues.
completed and that the issue, because it's listed here as a reason for denial, so.
I mean, I could present that to the board, or I think he'd be available for that. If the board would like me to make that conversation.
I'm not saying it's required, I'm just
Oh, okay.
curious about in
Sure,
general
sure.
whether or not.
It was a long, good conversation about
When was that?
Nick's history, because he has other businesses in the city. And he said that, yeah, this was just a one-time thing that he wasn't really sure what exactly happened, but we wanted to move past it. And again, it went very well, the conversation. So I don't think he'd have an issue of even if you reached out to him and the board.
I have a more technical question for you, that I guess I would be interested in hearing your thoughts. You don't have to respond to this tonight, but like, so the city code on the appeals process, says that the BZA shall conduct a de novo review of the determination of the city clerk. And so I'd be interested in hearing your opinion on what, you think that entails.
I didn't hear you. I apologize. I don't even know where you're looking.
Yeah. 111-73, yeah, up there. So I'm curious what you think the de novo review entails. Does that entail considering new information then that happens since the city clerk's decision or not? And I mean, the city can weigh in too on their opinion, but I'd be interested in hearing. And you can look into it and get back to us, but.
You said, I'm not understanding the question. I apologize.
Just wondering what your position is in terms of like how you think the board should proceed given the requirement to conduct a de novo review of the determination of the city clerk, and whether or not it would be appropriate for them to bring in new, like, extraneous information that's not already in the record provided by the city clerk. I will say, I think it's the position of the city, having discussed this a little bit internally, that we believe the record should stay as is, given that it's on appeal, and the record is the record. Additions to that would kind of defeat the, you'd be building a new record on appeal essentially at that point. I think there would be some issues with that certainly, but ultimately that is something that leave up to the board. So if you all decide that that's something you want to do, you can certainly proceed that way with the applicant and others.
I'll get back to you on that, definitely.
Any other comments, questions?
I just have one, now that Jason has made that point. And I'm gonna direct it specifically to Mr. DeJohn, just to make sure nobody tells me anything they shouldn't be telling me. Or that their lawyer doesn't want them to tell me. So with respect to the October 11th incident with the codes officer, was the contact with the code officer, was that a staff member or a manager?
I don't know what would be the relevance of being either one.
Well, I think to the extent that that incident was part of the denial, and I would want to probe a little bit
Right.
about that incident to the extent that you feel comfortable sharing information about it. But if that's, and I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with the city attorney's position, but since we're talking about things that are already in evidence or that have already been presented, part of that is that underlying incident. So now I'm interested in posing just a few questions about that, regardless of whether they may or may not be relevant.
Sure. I meant the relevant. I didn't mean relevant to the matter. I meant relevant if it was a manager or a staff member.
I'm going to answer your question this one time. I think for my interest, certainly go towards the weight of that, right? There's certainly situations where a young person who doesn't know any better might respond to certain incidents one way, whereas a seasoned manager or seasoned vet might respond a different way, for me.
So I believe it was a staff member, and I believe it was a newish person who was just on the department now is with the department for a short time. Again, I believe
the bar staff owner though.
Oh, was it?
Well, no, my question was about whoever was the staff.
Oh, I think you're talking about the codes person.
No.
Oh, okay, that's why I didn't understand the relevance of that.
Fair.
And then I was like, it was actually Mr. Warco.
Okay, and
The alleged incident, right?
Right.
That's
that's why I asked Mr. John Lang. And I think I've heard some conversation about it being resolved or there being discussions with. I know I heard Rick LaJoy's name. Have those discussions or resolutions also extended to the actual individual code officer?
I don't know. I don't think Mr. LaJoy would respond or even let me know what he says to his staff. I don't know that.
Fair, but I think in your opening statement, you did mention you said something about that the issue had been resolved, that the parties had spoken, and I wasn't sure if you were speaking.
And Mr. LaJoy.
You and Rick.
Yes, yes, and I also spoke to Josh Gold as well, who is a supervisor at the codes.
Okay.
So we had a discussion also.
Okay, that was my only question, because I remembered that coming through, you mentioning a personal conversation, and I wanted to be clear.
Yeah, no, I apologize for that. I didn't want to mislead you.
No, that's fair.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
How did the conversation go with Mr. Gold?
I know Josh 30 years. So, it went very well. It went up and down like the stock market. He was, he's very honest and straightforward and pretty bold. And so am I, but at the end of the day, we both discussed it, and he felt that we could move on from that. It was just a night that I think he believes, and I believe that both parties may have handled it, could have handled it better. Okay, when someone approaches you as an official in the city, sometimes when they're young or new, they may be bold and they may be, they just, again, it was a good conversation, and I think all parties understand what their roles are and how they should act.
And as a result of the altercation, were there any arrests made?
No. I don't think anything has come out of it at all.
Was APD called?
No.
But that was part of APD's decision in the end.
In the letter.
Report on the cabaret license.
Which if you think about it,
It's gonna,
code didn't deny it because of it. The police did, which doesn't make any sense to me either. But
how did they know about it?
I know. So that, I mean, again, I think people, any kind of friction between two people, it becomes, it especially Albany flies, into the departments. So.
You guys want to share?
No. I was trying to get him to get me a
Might
soda.
need soda.
I apologize.
Okay.
Can we do public comment?
First sentence, person. Do you want to do an additional or is it?
I think we covered the conditional use permit and the soundproof. We covered the various department comments.
On my question to the applicant on the de novo determination, I think I would like also an official response from the city on that. Thank you.
I think it could be relatively short, I think.
Yeah, I already talked about this with Rob.
Like, just have it in writing though.
Yeah.
Council.
Would I be getting something from that or no? Is it,
We can forward it to you. It'll probably end up in the project
it'd be in the
files,
project.
too.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thanks.
And that's specifically just like regarding the introduction to statements on the.
Yeah, whether, I want opinions from both the applicants and the city
Yeah.
on whether or not de novo review of the decision of the city clerk allows consideration of new evidence since the clerk's decision.
The decision of the city clerk or BZA, just to be sure, just to be clear what you're saying.
Yeah,
You said clerk at the end.
yeah, the decision of the city clerk.
Okay. 'Cause
Wait.
Our review is separate from that, right? I thought the BZA's review is separate from that of the city clerk.
Well, so the appeal is of the decision of the city clerk, right? And the code says, you know, that we should conduct a de novo review of the determination of the city clerk. And so I'm looking for, you know, legal opinion from both parties as to whether that means we consider new evidence or do we consider only what was presented to the city clerk.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
With that said, if the applicant has nothing more, we will move on to public comments. There's quite a few people that are here tonight. Again, like we said, for the next meeting, the board believes that we require the proper mailing notice before the board can take any action on this matter. And so I guess we can decide at the next meeting whether you guys want to present again and talk through everything again. I would recommend including a reference that tonight's meeting was recorded and is available on the city website.
And your staff will send that to us?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
The link, right?
Yeah, the link,
Yep.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
So before we jump, or just kind of as a summary reminder, per the Board of Zoning Appeals guidelines or rules of procedure for taking public comments, each member of I'm reading them just for everyone to hear so we can start good. Each member of the public that wishes to provide input on a matter before the board shall come forth and state the following information for the record: name, address, and person or organization he/she represents. That can be yourself. There are time limits for public speakers. Members of the public may have 3 minutes to present their remarks. Staff will have a timer, which probably beeps a few minutes before, right? Or something like that, or?
I would just have it at the 3 minutes.
Okay. So there'll be a timer that indicates the 3 minutes. And it requires a majority vote of the board in order to extend those 3 minutes. If there's any council members that are here, then that's 6 minutes for them. And then the applicants can have 5 minutes to rebut at the end of public comments. Based on that, if the first person who wants to speak wants to come up.
Thank you. I apologize. My name is Bill Pettit. I'm president of the Washington Park Neighborhood Association. I didn't realize that I would cause this meeting to happen twice. I was approached by their counsel and asked, given the copy of the advertisement that was in the Times Union, and he assumed I would send it to people I don't know. And I didn't realize he asked me to do that. I thought he asked me to meet with the parties and work something out, which I don't have the ability to do that. I can't represent the public and make some sort of deal with the owners of the building. So I am Bill Pettit. I live at 369.5 State Street, Albany. I'm president of the Washington Park Neighborhood Association, which represents loosely 500 homes and apartments around Washington Park. I got what you're talking about as this being a de novo review. So I was planning on talking about something else, but I will only talk about that. My experience before the city clerk made her findings. Council member Romero and myself asked Nick and Aaron for a tour of the place. This predates, I think it predates the planning board, but I'm not sure. Somewhere, it's certainly before he opened. I went over there because I knew it as the Larkin 20 years ago. It was gutted and redone. It was a beautiful job. I told him it's a beautiful space. And then we went in the back, and there are two spots. There's the front and the back. In the front, you can't hear anything for whatever reason. In the back is where they have the music. I mean, in the back is the stage area. They were saying that they were presenting the project as being a quiet record kind of thing. I went along with that. I want to see what he's doing. At one point, I made a suggestion, and Mr. Warhol lost his shit. He started screaming at me. He told me he doesn't need my fucking help. He doesn't need my fucking support. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave. And so I left. And then the city clerk handed out her decision. He took that, put it on Instagram, and read it. My son in Brooklyn called me up, Dad, what are you doing? And he vilified me by name. And I was trying to work with the dude. I was trying to get somewhere where he could open it without a problem. And that's how he treated me. And he's never apologized. And if you note that one point on there that says council will work with community leaders, he has never called me and never talked to me.
Okay, yeah, same here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a way to get sound on that?
Yes.
It's just really loud, but yes,
Mm-hmm.
I will turn it off.
Tap to unmute.
I know, I'm just,
Yeah.
speaker, right next to you.
Or even if we can just have it count down on the screen.
Oh, it does, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it the last
I
time.
didn't see it either. Yeah.
I was just changing the volume for
I
everybody.
mean,
Do you still need the officer?
no.
Did you have any questions for the officer? Or?
Is the officer here for public comment, or has he been subpoenaed by the applicant?
He was subpoenaed by me.
Not aware of that, I'm sorry.
I'm just finding this out now as well.
Okay.
I think it would be, like, do you have permission from APD to, like, speak on this and stuff as well?
I mean, I can only speak, what I know. As far as permission, no one's given me permission to speak on their behalf.
I guess I'm just slightly
I
concerned
thought it
with
would be
that.
very valuable to the board.
I think there's absolutely value to that, certainly, to be found there. I'm just unsure of the appropriateness, because this is the first I'm hearing of a subpoenaed police officer.
Yeah.
I think probably reserve this until the next time if possible, so we can just discuss and make sure it's an appropriate appearance. that's all right. If you want to discuss outside briefly as well, just to go over specific, we can certainly too. The three of us, Bruce?
Yeah.
Next person signed up?
Yeah, next person, please. Thank you.
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Todd Henderson. I reside at 56.5 Spring Street. I'm representing myself as a resident of Center Square.
Thank you.
So I'm here to express my opposition to the appeal of the denied cabaret license for the Larkin Hi-Fi. The most important fact to keep in mind when considering this appeal is that the business owners misled the planning board in this very room and the attendees about the business concept that they intended to open. I rewatched the planning board meeting that I was here for in person yesterday as a refresher to make sure I wasn't crazy and to validate what my feelings were. And it was like they were describing a completely different business that they're now operating. Notable quotes from the planning board meeting include, and these are quotes from the recording, "We spent a lot of money on audio equipment, but that doesn't mean volume. It means quality of music. We're not here to create a disturbance. We do have a stage back there, not to make the assumption that this is a music venue. It would be great to have someone do an acoustic night every once in a while in the back room, just like the Larkin. We would put a little piano back there. I mean, it's not going to be heavy metal. It's going to be very vibey and jazzy." Their previous landlord described their old business, Lo-Fi, as a complete nightmare and unbearable because of the added speakers and nightly DJs. Nick Workall told the planning board that the business they intended to open was going to be much more like the experience of Post Wine Bar that he had across the street. He added that the Lo-Fi business model was not a success, they didn't like it, and they had no intention of trying to replicate that concept. He then said, and I quote, "The intent is for it not to be rowdy, but an upscale and low-key." You've all read the reasons why their application was denied, but the takeaway is the premises history report documents a pattern of violation related to numerous noise complaints, appearing to be a constant problem which raises significant concerns about the suitability of the location for the issuance of a cabaret license, which is extremely important, and I'll get to that in 1 second. There's a huge skylight in the back of the room of this establishment that amplifies the DJ's music throughout the alley into the residences on State and Spring Street. My husband uploaded this diagram that he created. Would you like to take a look and maybe pass it around? You haven't
Yeah,
all
we
seen
have,
it?
yeah, we've seen it.
Thank you. The business owners have posted that we are anti-business and want to kill nightlife. Nothing could be further from the truth. We do not want empty businesses on Lark Street. We live here because we want to live in an energetic, thriving, and walkable neighborhood. We have neighbors like the 11, Lark Hall, Savoy, Dove and Deer, Fusebox, and Bar Vegan, all of whom play music and operate their businesses in a way that allow them to thrive and coexist, nestled within residential blocks. They engage the community, which is something that the owners of Larkin Hi-Fi have not done. I'd like to play one short audio clip recorded in the alley that separates the business from the bedroom windows of residents on State Street. Mind that this recording, it's 40 seconds, is crucial, if you don't mind.
I think from the procedures, we just need a quick motion to extend the time. Just give us a second. Is there a motion to extend the time for this public speaker?
I think part of the trouble is we have multiple speakers, and if we extend the time for one speaker, and I appreciate Mr. Henderson, that right, in the interest of fairness, we would have to extend it for others, and 3 minutes goes by really fast. And so just for that reason, I'm gonna say that we should not extend. However, I also want to note, Mr. Henderson, I think you have, if you want to submit what looks like your written additional notes in there, and or give us like a 10-second understanding of what would play from that clip and your understanding of it. Just in fairness.
I took a recording outside of the door that they claimed is soundproofed, which also abuts up bedroom windows of people on 355 State Street. I'm upset that I can't play this for you. I think it is very.
Submit that as well, if you'd like.
It's a video recording, which I don't think you guys accept. It's not just an audio recording.
I mean, I think we could have accepted it.
Can you send it? Yeah.
You can
send it over.
I'm happy to.
We can include it in the.
Yeah, sure.
Can I play it? Because it's actually from my apartment, I believe, right?
If you want that part, I mean, you're up next. So
Yeah.
if you'd like,
Because I think it's very important.
All right, let's,
Give me,
she'll come up, let's do it.
So you can put, I don't know how to, I'm like
well, if you can
but
start.
fast because I have stuff to say. Oh, yeah.
We'll do it after, thank you.
I'll put it in the phone.
Yes.
This is through a closed door.
After midnight, I believe, most of the business.
And this was after they said that they claimed they had soundproof.
Okay.
Was there a date on it then?
Sorry?
Was there a date on it? It was after?
I can look it up, but it was after, it was definitely after they signed.
And you could submit that if
And I'll
you'd like.
submit this as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Okay, here we go. Speed round. Jenny Marie Duran. I live at 355 State Street, number 1. My apartment is 250 feet from the space of Larkin 199 Hi-Fi. So I initially want to say that I have issue with the lack of due process. He would just literally have to walk. You can look on Google 1 minute and put something on that building to inform all of us that this appeal happened. The theme of that individual, the owner of that establishment and that space, has been not following the law, right? I can tell you I have a law degree. My sister's a retired police officer. I've represented unhoused individuals in Los Angeles and have lived in big cities. So balancing all of those things, I use a reasonableness lens when I think of noise and reasonability and enjoying my space. When I have complained, I have called the police and complained and said, this is not reasonable. I have twin daughters. There is an alleyway and there are people, mostly men, I don't want to genderize it, but men that are in that alley that look into and can directly look into my space of my home. And so I cannot literally have any blinds open because they would look in to me and my twin daughters, teen daughters. And my daughters are students and I'm very much about their academics. They are not able, we have to sleep in the living room because the noise is so unreasonable. And I have big issues with that. I have big issues with him saying that financially he couldn't give us notice, then why does he have an attorney? Like the reasoning behind some of the comments that were made. And the other thing is I have concerns that one of the denials was based on a physical altercation, allegedly, but the allegation has me concerned.
Next, please.
Patricia Morrison, 355 State Street, Unit 4EF. I actually attended the planning board meeting on March 5th, 2024. Similar concerns to Todd Henderson. I listened to that meeting. I heard a lot of, I'm willing to work, I'm willing to do this, and the complete opposite has happened. There was a concern at that time of the outside usage. There was issues with when they were under construction, safety and egress, and noise from their previous business at 200 Lark Street. I personally have had experience. My unit is not even on the back side of the building. I'm on the front side of the building, but my side, I face Lark Street and State, so I'm on a corner unit. To be asked to soundproof my location, actually do have brand new windows. throughout my unit on Lark Street. So they're the most current. The neighbors should not have to regulate. New Scotland Spirits Tasting Room is a good neighbor right across the street. We don't have this issue. I clearly understand. I bought in a mixed-use zone. I have no issues with that. But it is our safe haven. It is our home. It is also our financial investment. Weeknights or weekends, it doesn't matter. I get up, I'm a ski instructor for the adaptive ski program. On a Saturday night, I don't need to be up at midnight because I'm going to be getting up at 5 in the morning. So whether this happens during the week or on the weekend, it is irrelevant. It's disingenuous. Everything that has been stated in the past has proven not to come true. I'm asking you to remain with the decision of the city clerk. I understand that maybe new evidence will be, and I will watch for the next time. So my understanding is public comment will remain open. There are people from the building that could not be here tonight. I'm surprised they haven't written something, but I guess we did get short notice. And I agree with the statement that was just said, if you're hiring an attorney but you cannot afford to send out notice, it's just completely disingenuous. We are literally next door. So I'm asking for the decision to stand. There's a reason why there's a process for an application to have this type of usage. And they have shown themselves not to be compliant in the past. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone online? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Is that any thoughts, motion, discussion? What? Oh, yes, you have a 5-minute rebuttal. Thank you.
Before you start, does he have a 5-minute rebuttal for all of public comment, as in he should save it for the next meeting? Or will he get the opportunity to rebut 2 times?
I agree, it probably makes sense to wait.
Does staff know the answer to that question?
It's gonna be another hearing.
If we allow more public comment at the next meeting, I think it would be equally appropriate to allow him to rebut at the next meeting too. So
Yeah.
I think that's up to you guys.
I agree.
Done, cool.
So again, every comment that was done here, in rebuttal to what they said that when we first spoke. Again, my client has done everything he can to make it better, to make it livable for everyone around him. Again, we live in a mixed-use area, okay? Think about all the people that aren't here tonight that don't have a problem with it, but a select few that have a problem with it and that need to make changes because they live in a mixed-use area. Okay, Lark Street is a very loud area. Again, we will work with them instead of trying to close another business in Lark Street or another business in Albany is not gonna do anything for anybody. And whether he's paying me or I'm doing it for nothing is nobody's business with my clients, okay? Financially, yeah, it is a burden. It is a burden. $400 is a burden, especially when he's trying to be accommodating to them and limiting the services that he has. He's trying to limit the noise. He's been doing everything he can. It's a business. As far as everybody's taking this personal, people looking in windows, again, it's an alleyway. I don't even think he lets people out there anymore. I'm not positive on that. But again, if you're sleeping in a living room for months, I mean, maybe that's not the place you want to be in a loud area on Lark Street. Okay, and I'm not saying that she has to move. I'm not being, not sympathetic, or I just think that maybe again people have to understand that other people like the place. Other neighbors love that music there and there's some entertainment in Albany, which we don't have a lot left of. But I really want to thank the board, and I do thank the comments. And I think someone did say that like they had a noise or a tape, a recording. We don't know where that came from. All right, I wasn't even in the room, but we don't even know where that came from. So again, let's base it on the evidence that we have before us, the track record, which we have no violations. There's nothing's come from this except for a denial that I just spoke to which I wish the police officer would have been allowed to speak, which would have helped a lot. I'm going to subpoena him next hearing, and hopefully we can go. You guys have questions.
Please forward me related documents to that, subpoena, whatever you have. I checked.
It's not in there.
You've never sent me anything other than a smiley face, John.
Jay, you complimented me that I sent such a good response. No, I'm serious. I thought I sent it. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's not a big deal. Just
I wasn't trying to be sneaky.
No, I totally get that. We don't want to do a little trial by surprise here for everyone.
Of course. My apologies for that to the board and especially to council. Again, thank you for your time. I don't want to keep you any later. I'm sure you want to go home to your families. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Process-wise, we don't have to make any motion to do anything to table, right? Like, we just leave it open. Yeah, there's no need for a motion to leave it open. It just stays open until we close.
The motion would, I guess, be to close and make your ultimate decision.
Okay.
Yeah, we all got to do that together.
Okay. And that's everything for tonight because the other matter got
Other item was
removed tonight.
removed due to cancellation of last night's planning board meeting. The last item would just be.
The minutes of last meeting. Is there a motion on the minutes
To
of
approve the December 4, 2024 minutes.
Thank you. Lisa, have you
Yes.
voted? Yes. Adriana, yes. Approved.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Serena?
Second. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Adriana, yes.
Yes.
The meeting is
Give me
closed.
1 minute.
Maybe a shock of caffeine.